Hi, this is Shelly, and welcome to With Bowl and Spoon, a podcast about your personal food evolution.
I'm Brett. I'm the unwitting sidekick.
Everyone knows that food is cool. No secret. Eat that food with a bowl and spoon. Everyone knows that food is cool. No secret. Eat that food with a bowl and spoon.
Hello, and welcome to With Bowl and Spoon, a podcast where we have stimulating conversations with interesting people about a fascinating topic: food. Eating it, loving it, appreciating it, and examining how people's relationship to food has changed personally. Your personal food evolution. So more typically, this podcast is going to be a series of interviews with all kinds of people, both in the food industry and out of the food industry, talking about their personal food evolution. However, in this second episode, we thought we would try to answer some of your questions that people have already brought to us. So, for the first question, and this
Gosh,
is from
what a shocker.
This is from Aaron. What is a personal food evolution, and what made you start thinking about food in this way? It's a good question.
Not particularly surprising, I guess. First in.
I guess it is something that I kind of made up. I've Googled the term a few times and haven't seen anything, haven't found anything about it. So maybe I did make it up. Anyway, personal food evolution is the way that we all think about food and how we got to this point. So I think my personal food evolution, at least this stage of it, started when I got laid off from my job in 2004 and had to start thinking about getting a job and what I needed money for. So I looked at my budget and found that most of my money was being spent, probably not surprisingly, on food. And so, the thought of getting a minimum wage job and making money to buy food to bring home and make and then go out and work again and make money to buy food, it just seemed like this really crazy. I decided I wanted to work for food, and we had been part of the CSA for a couple of years at that point up at Mildred's Daughters, a community-supported agriculture share. So you pay a certain amount of money, and then, like at the beginning of the season, and you get a box of food every week. And they had a working share where you would work 5 hours, and you would get a full share, 5 hours a week, and you would get a full share of food. So I started doing that, and that was in 2005. Yeah, in the spring of 2005. So yeah, that was what got me sort of on this trajectory of thinking about the food system.
Well, getting you into the trajectory, I think, of pursuing it with any depth and then on to education and so on, for sure. But I would argue that the seeds of this were in you a lot earlier than that.
Seeds.
But, yeah, there you go. We'll say that was intended. But no, I would say it was a lot earlier than that for you. Although I think this is the thing, this is such a dense question in and of itself. And the whole point is that, it's what is a personal food evolution? Is it just the traditional standards that you maintain without thinking, because that's how mom made it, because that's how grandma made it, because whatever? Or is it that you've had a health issue that has had to push you in a particular focus and alter what you think are the driving needs and desires of food? Or is it you're suddenly in college and all you can afford is ramen, and you discover that a spoonful of crunchy peanut butter turns that into a poor man's pad thai? Is it, what is it? I mean, it's very general. I think we've all got baggage that we bring up, and they're all, multifaceted, right? We've all got those traditional things.
It usually starts out with what your family eats, sort of traditional stuff, or what your mom makes you for whatever regular meals or holidays or whatever, and you have some traditional foods, and then it's usually when you leave home and that's when you get influenced the first time, or just kids and going to friends' houses is a huge part of that too. And then when you the next step, when you start seriously thinking about making meals for other people, so a lot of times relationships will make people change the way that they eat because they start thinking about it more intentionally. I remember you made me spaghetti when we first were dating. We only dated for 9 months. We get married after 9 months of knowing each other. But during that time, Brett made me spaghetti, and it was too peppery for me to eat, and it was awful. I had no tolerance for spice at that time.
To be clear, it was not awful.
It wasn't.
It
was awful for me to not be able to eat what Brett had made me. But that's a whole other story about how I've gotten my spicy tolerance up, and that's Indian food. That's a whole other story. But yeah, so that's oftentimes, being influenced by people that you admire, people that you are fallen for. That's really helpful to help move your food evolution along. So I think that sort of, I guess I was exposed to growing and gardening as a kid, but that didn't really come back in earnest until I started working on the farm, and more of that sort of came back to me.
Well, this is it. That's what I'm saying. I think you forget some of the origins of this, because I remember the weird thing.
I forget my origin
story. One of the very many weird things with you was that when I first knew you, you were living with your mom. And you were gardening out there, and you had a lovely bed. It was all...
Oh, that's right. I did that row of cucumbers.
You were less interested in what you produced. You were more interested in these techniques you were learning, like a companion planting. Yeah,
that's right.
Lasagna gardening.
Because I had gone to Rodale Institute to visit Steve. He was my college friend, was working there, and so I went there and visited him, and he showed me all these things. Sorry.
Right, so you were actively doing this, and you had this lovely garden with tomatoes, basil, marigolds, and cucumbers, but you had, as my memory would serve, you had almost no interest in the food that you produced.
I think the rest of it was actually the landlord's...
180 degrees now.
I think that was the landlord's garden, and I just grew the cucumbers, and there was something companion with it, maybe parsley. Cucumbers and parsley, does that go together? Anyway, you're right, I was doing the companion planting. But
and lasagna beds and stuff like that.
True. So no dig. It was super lazy gardening.
It's different, yeah. But I mean, and maybe that was a little bit more nostalgic to your grandmother as well, because she always had her tomatoes and what have you. But it was, other than I'm going to have tomatoes and elbow macaroni, which has been a standard. Yeah. Forever with you, that you had little interest in what you were gardening. So it was. So you've been sort of thematically, I think, on this course for rather longer than you give yourself credit for.
Yeah. Well, I guess to sort of wrap up this question, I would say that the answer to what is a personal food evolution, is going to be one of those kind of unfolding things, and it's different for everybody. And
it's what was going to hopefully thematically keep this whole podcast actually interesting and make people want to come back another week.
Don't know if we've answered that question, but stick around and maybe you'll learn what a food evolution is.
I think it's different for everyone, and hopefully we can give you some clues on how to expand yours.
Yeah, I think the part of this is me trying to get to the bottom of it as well, and see how what things influence people the most, if there's any sort of consistent form of education or knowledge or peer pressure, whatever it is, that could help people to inform their personal food evolution and improve their health through that. But that's long picture that I was thinking of. In the meantime, it's just interesting conversations with fascinating people.
This is it. What is your personal food evolution? It's a way to start a conversation. Okay.
All right, well, let's get to the next question. Carrie asks, If you have to choose between local and organic, which is more eco-friendly? Whoa, that's a great question.
I
That's
concur.
a fantastic question.
It is. It's going to get convoluted.
And I see a rubric. Is that what it's called when you got the squares and the things across the top and the things on the side? And so you've got your commercial growing, and then your organic, or your conventional growing,
Yeah.
and your organic at the top, and then you've got industrial, which is like large scale, and then you've got local, which is typically more small scale. Mm-hmm. So I would say, so first of all, and this is really complicated. I should tell you now, I got my master's in food studies from Chatham University, which makes me at least versed in this topic somewhat.
Well, no, you're absolutely versed. You
I know, but the thing is, it's so complicated. There's so much more to know and to learn. It's really, really complex. So yes, I guess I'm better able to answer this question than your average person, but there's so many factors to consider for sure. And one time when this is what I call food system math maybe, but it's for everything you buy. You sort of do this mental calculation of what the best is for the environment. You also have to think of the workers. You have to think of the transportation. But also, when you think of like, the fossil fuel, and you only think of transportation, you also have to think of like the conventional way of growing. They use the fertilizer they use is a fossil fuel based product, and that puts a lot of like nitrogen.
That puts an even bigger footprint on it.
And it puts a lot of nitrogen in, and then the runoff of that gets into the rivers, and there's all kinds of problems with that aspect. And then also their pesticides are all fossil fuel based, which has so you're using more fossil fuel with any of your conventional commercial growing, or your conventional growing in that regard. So,
but then there's still a footprint with an awful lot of organic, because of course, at the very least, it has to be preserved and transported. A lot of it, so
it has to be
your organic green peppers might be wonderful and near zero impact at the farm, but by the time it gets to you from Holland.
And the Holland, you remember my story. So that's the meltdown I had in grad school. I was working on my thesis in the last couple months of my master's program at Chatham, and I had this recipe I wanted to make. And in grad school, you're just completely encompassed with everything. And I had this recipe. I wanted to get the ingredients, and it included a red pepper. So I go to Whole Foods and I'm getting what I need, and I'm looking at the peppers, and they've got like 4 different peppers. One is organic from Holland. I'm like, okay, that's a big carbon footprint. It's organic, but it's from Holland. That seemed really big. And then there was fair trade from Mexico. I'm like, that's still far away, but it's fair trade, and the people were treated well, so that's cool. But they might use pesticides down there. And then there was other options mixed in there. I can't remember what they were, but the math was just too much for my tiny little brain to bear at the time, and I just broke down bawling in the middle of Whole Foods and had to leave without my pepper. I couldn't take it. It was horrible. So the food math is very intense at times.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously my suspicion is that particularly on the with the growing interest, and I've got to guess because it seems like when we do something right locally, it's already being done right in an awful lot more of the country than around here. But it seems to me more that the intrigue in local farming, the expansion of local farms again, it's more typically a lot of them are heading towards organic. So you can have both, plus the fact of wanting to support local industry and making sure that is extant, and and obviously then the mental payback of not a big carbon footprint, as well as knowing you're buying this produce, so that farmer will return to the market next week.
And there's also the two other factors that fit in there. So between conventional and organic, there's a bunch of other sort of like in between. So it's not really heavy on the pesticides, but they use certain things that it's a lot less chemicals that they have to use in certain ways that they farm. So there's also that with your local farmers, and they're not necessarily certified. It is a very complicated topic. So you've got that factor there too, with the smaller farms being able to use less of the inputs that we've been talking about. But then you also have the idea that when you support local, you're supporting the local economy. So the people that work at that farm live in your community, and they're spending their money in the community.
Yeah.
So the money stays in the community. So that's, in my mind, that's better.
Yeah.
So you're thinking about the economy, you're thinking about the people, and you're also thinking about the way it's grown, because that's environmental. So there's multiple factors that are at play here. So if I'm looking at this,
sounds churlish, but I feel like, I mean, like you said, you go to Whole Foods and you have that kind of selection, and we love the idea of organic and what have you.
Yeah.
But I feel like more customers shop in particular ways. It will, hopefully, if these are open-minded corporations, they will read that and see the seed change, and so
that's what's
put
been happening
more of the
over the past
so if
few
it
years,
encourages actual change by your considered shopping, then it's complex, it's infuriating, but I think it is valid and it's necessary, I think.
So if you're asking for my professional opinion about what is better for the environment, but then of course, I'm going to put in all those other factors there. I would say I would go with local. Either way, conventional or organic. Organic is going to be a little more expensive, but that would really be the way that I would go if I could with the organic, because you're encouraging farmers that don't use all those additives, and also are local. So that's good. And then secondly, I'd go with the conventional, that would be B, conventional local farmers. And they should be really willing to talk to you about what their practices. Yeah. And if they don't want to talk to you about it, that's kind of telling in itself.
Yes.
But most farmers that I've talked to, the local farmers, I'm really familiar with our local farmers at our markets here. And they'll be very honest with you about what they use.
Oh yeah.
So you can ask them, and if the more people are asking, the more it's at the forefront, and the more they think about if they're going to use certain chemicals or whatever. So yeah, I would say organic local first, then conventional local second, and then I would say organic industrial third. But you got to consider, when things get to that scale, you're still going to have the idea, like, to keep organic affordable and at that scale, there's got to be somebody who's paying for it. So usually it's the employees, the pickers, the people who are laboring in the fields. At least they're not being exposed to the chemicals, but they're still probably not necessarily being paid a fair wage. Hopefully they are, but that's the concern when you get to such a large scale. And
it's
then
a fair trade, essentially.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of other little.
And actually, another aspect that strikes me here is, breaking it down like this, is maybe this is an opportunity for you to actually be a little bit more mindful about how you shop for food. I think we've, obviously, post-war America, we've just made it haven. You can go, there's so much choice. There's so many things. There's so much. It's just,
America's crazy.
It's land of milk and honey and all that nonsense. But so if you make the decision, you're going local and organic, and yes, that's probably going to have the bigger price tag. So then maybe that's where you start to say, I'm going to be more cautious about my shopping. I'm going to actually think about what I buy, and I'm not just going to say, yes, I'll have 2 of these, 3 of those, and half of them go off before you get to them.
That's
so they're
true.
actually in a compost or going into a landfill. Maybe you think about, planning out your meal so that you don't overspend. So actually, because I think people are oblivious to that. They think they've saved some money, but then that food is wasted, so
That's
they haven't
true.
actually saved anything.
Well, you know what, though? In this pandemic time, everybody wants to stock up so that they don't have
That's
to
a
go to the
difficult
store
thing with
more
produce. So
often. No,
with
I
fresh
know
produce.
that's a big problem, right? Trying to figure out how to navigate in these times with these restrictions that we have on us. So it's really interesting. So, Carrie, I hope we answered your question somewhat. It wasn't. It sounded like a real easy question, didn't it? Like yes or no, A or B. It's not that easy, and that's how our real crazy food system is. But let us know on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or the website how that question worked out for you. All right.
All right, trip over
Anything
there.
else?
Okay, so on to number 3, are we?
Okay, the next question is from Rachel. Have you ever been on a restrictive diet? Did it help? And how did you feel afterwards? That's a good question.
It is.
We haven't had to be on a health
I'm
related.
biting my tongue at the moment.
We haven't, fortunately, in our lives, we haven't had to be on a restrictive diet for any particular health reasons. I mean, maybe every once in a while when they were trying to figure out what was going on with your stomach, that
Yeah,
they
there
did have you
was
eliminate dairy
they were
or whatever.
wanting me to cut out the clearly too much red meat and cholesterol I was devouring, which I wasn't. So, but then we eventually found out that there was actually a familial problem there.
Oh, right,
remember.
okay.
So but I think we were sort of sensible ourselves, but.
Well, we haven't had to be on a diet for health reasons, but we have taken on a few interesting diets over the years, mostly my fault.
Entirely her fault.
So there was one back when we were first married, back in the 90s, the cabbage diet, the cabbage soup diet.
Cabbage soup diet. Oh.
That was, the cabbage soup diet was a big thing for a while. I don't know if any of you remember that, but the deal is you make a huge batch of this cabbage soup with all these vegetables in it, and all week long you can eat the cabbage soup as much as you want.
I love cabbage soup, but yeah.
And then so it starts, I think it starts on a Sunday, and you eat nothing but cabbage soup. And then the Monday, and the way you do it is you buy all the food for the week, so you're not thinking about it because you're freaking starving. So the first day is just cabbage soup. The second day is cabbage soup, and you can eat as much maybe fruit as you want. Mm-hmm. And then the third day, you have cabbage soup and as much vegetables as you want, like raw vegetables. And then the next day you have cabbage soup, and I think you could integrate a starch in there. I think it was a potato. It had to be, but that's still a vegetable. I don't know. It was very, very confusing. Go ahead.
But yeah, I think it was gradually, and then eventually grains, and then the payoff at the end of the week was that you got to treat yourself to steak.
Yeah.
And me being me, which is horribly depressingly anal to my own chagrin, I, of course, followed through and stuck with this diet that was foisted upon me by her channeling, I think, an uncle.
It just occurred to me that...
How many days into it did you make it before you declared, F this, I'm having the steak?
I just want to say that I think this is very telling about your personality and why our marriage has lasted as long as it has. Brett sticks to it, regardless of how painful it is.
Oh,
We've been married now 26 years. I thought it was 27 years, but I had to do the math again.
It just
It's
feels
26.
like 30 years.
But yeah, so Brett sticks to this diet. I made it 3 days, and I was like,
you made it 3 days? Okay.
give me that freaking potato and steak. Done. So yeah, I'm not very good at it. I'm not very good at the restricted diet.
What was the point of that diet? I don't even remember. Was it just about flushing the system
Yeah, I'm
of
not sure.
toxins,
I
or
don't
was it
remember
actually
either.
about losing some belly fat or something. I
don't remember. I mean, that was the 90s.
Was it just filling the house with farts, cabbage all week long?
That's what it was, yeah.
What was the actual purpose of it?
I don't remember. You can
at
Google
least the
that,
last one, as much as I hated it, at least I know what the purpose was. And
so let's talk about that. So last year, my work wellness program had they offered you get points towards getting cash back at the end of the year on your health insurance for doing this particular program that they implement. That they got this group to come in from some firehouse. It was Firehouse and Engine
5, Engine 2.
Okay, so I'm a really bad advocate for this, but that's okay.
I have no intention of being an advocate for this.
Wasn't super a fan of it, but anyway. So the deal is with this is that it's a 7-day rescue diet. So if you've got like high cholesterol or you're having some really bad problems with your health and your blood levels were high or
cholesterol levels are high or fat, basically obesity, you're morbidly obese.
Critical. If it's very critical.
It's no argument. It is very effective.
And honestly, like a lot of the people that I know that I work with who went through it, they did learn something from it.
I think even we did. I think we have, for example, better habits of label reading. For example, if we buy anything that's packaged, we've upped our game on how we look at
and that's a point that a lot of people had brought forward, is that they started reading labels more, for sure. But we thought it was going to be vegan for a week, so no meat, no dairy, no cheese, which is its own food group too.
It is one of Shelly's two main food groups, to be clear.
But then we go to the intro session and we find out all these other restrictions, like you can't have oil and you can't use. There were some other things.
There's like no oils, no. I can't remember.
You couldn't eat tofu. Which is a perfect.
I would have thought perfect protein, but
it's a good protein, and if you're going vegan, I would think that would be a good thing to eat. But anyway, so it was pretty much just eating raw vegetables. I guess you could have grain too, so I must have had grain at some point. So I had oatmeal in the morning and stuff.
I followed one of their recipes for that lentil, those maybe lentil patties that you remember is like, because there is no oil, there is no binding agent, there is no way for this stuff to stick together.
Egg. No egg.
No egg. No. There's no binding. There was no way that stuff was holding together. And it was like, and then you put it between two slices of bread, and it really is like having a sandwich of a slice of bread between two slices of bread. It
was really weird.
Oh my gosh, it was just terrible.
But it was. I felt that week like I was constantly eating just to keep myself from feeling hungry. But then I always felt hungry.
Yep.
And I remember my intern Cheyenne was in the office one day, and I would bring like large gallon bags of vegetables so that I would have something to eat. Because you can't find that downtown necessarily. So, and I'd just have the vegetables on my lap, and I'd be stuffing my face, and I just felt so hungry, and I was so cranky, and I was so angry about this whole thing. We made it the week. I think I did eat the soy though, but
and this is it. I feel like when they were describing it and like giving you the idea and really giving it the hard sell, saying how easy this is, how simple, how it's just so direct, and all you need is this, and this, and you started a day with this list of things you could have. And then basically, as you went through each meal of the day, it was just a reconfiguration of exactly the same elements. There was just no variety. There was just, it was, I think, as I said, I think that my big complaint was, it was food as fuel, not for any degree of satisfaction of eating. It was there was no joy whatsoever in this.
Yeah. Oh, and it was also no drinking. No alcohol
all
week.
You couldn't even take the edge of this nonsense.
And that was the easiest part. But it was really depressing to not have food to look forward to. I guess it's probably because of who I am and how I've evolved to this point, but it was really terrible for me. I really
horrible.
did not enjoy it. I was cranky. So
and then there was also that workbook that went along with that.
The workbook,
you didn't
No.
play that. That was where you first fell down, but you did stick with the diet this time. Mostly, I think there was a couple of sort of accidental cheats at lunchtimes, but that workbook, which was then demanded, like, what exercise did you do and how much was it? And it was like, and I walk everywhere or cycle and what have you. And
I was
there were
cycling all the way to
days.
work.
There was days when it was just, F off, because it's like there was no energy because there was no joy. It was just like, oh my God, you weren't, like you said, you were just trying to eat all the time because you perpetually felt hungry. It was annoying, and then it would go on, and it wanted to know what your mental state was, and it would be like, how bloody hell do you think it is, and then it wanted to know about your stool, and I feel I offered to throw it at them, but yeah, I mean, it was comical, but then obviously, and in the interest of being fair. Not really an interest I bear this one much, but the fact is it does work for people that like you said, that desperately need to change things and change them fast. So it's there were plenty of reports of it, people dropping all kinds of weight, cholesterol numbers going
even
down,
in that week,
so
so,
even in that week. But that was because there was a lot of people in
so
there that
maybe
were
we're just
genuinely
the wrong people to ask.
sort of at the desperate edge. I mean, we were, some of these people.
Well, I don't want to say that any of my coworkers were at a desperate edge, but it worked
several.
for them and didn't work for me.
No.
So
well, like I said, I think the danger, I think, with any of these sort of restrictive diets is that when you turn it, like I said, from food to just fuel, and if there's no joy in it, if there's no way that you can look at a diet and find a way to say, oh yeah, I'm going to make me some, it's something you've never done before, but you're going to do, I'm going to make me some stinky tofu, or I'm going to, but if, healthful things, if you can't be excited about it, if there is no joy in the eating of it, then I suspect that that's why you don't persist with it, and it doesn't continue, and it doesn't succeed. And so
So trying to find the joy in anything would be the thing. But I guess to answer Rachel's question, yes, we've been on a couple restricted diets. Did it help? No.
No, you can tell we're still grumpy. And we've just eaten very well.
And how did we feel afterwards? We were grateful that
it was over.
We don't. Well, no, we're grateful that it's over, but we're also grateful that we don't have, and it's given us perspective. Like, we're grateful that we don't have to do that sort of restrictive diet as a way of life, and knock on wood, hope not to have to, because we would be miserable. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, like this one, it's like, I feel like if it was just a crash thing, then that would be sort of fine. But yeah, you've got to get some joy into food, no matter what it is.
Yep, joy is the key. That's all the time we have for questions today. We'll be back soon with conversations with Katie Heldstab from Leona's ice cream fame, Hal B. Klein, a Pittsburgh food writer, or should I say the Pittsburgh food writer, and Farmer Girl Ebb. Happy New Year.
Everyone knows that food is cool. No secret. Eat that food with a bowl and spoon. Everyone knows that food is cool. No secret. Eat that food with a bowl and spoon. Bowl. And spoon. Bowl. And spoon.
With Bowl and Spoon is hosted, produced, and mixed by me, Shelly Danko Day. Original theme song was written and performed by Paul Labrise and friends, and it's not all of his friends, just a few. Yes, he has more than that. Thanks to Brett Day for being my sidekick and helping me answer some questions. Special thanks to my support network and all the kind and thoughtful feedback I've received from everybody already. Thanks. You can listen to With Bowl and Spoon on Anchor, Pocket Cast, Spotify, Radio Public, Breaker, and Google Podcasts. You can follow us and send us questions or messages on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at With Bowl and Spoon. Thanks for listening. See you soon.